Have you ever felt that no matter how much you achieve, there's a part of you that quietly sabotages your own success? Maybe it happens in your relationships. You long for intimacy, yet find yourself withdrawing or picking fights. Maybe it shows up at work just when you're about to make a breakthrough. You procrastinate, or an old habit derails you. Or perhaps it's a deeper feeling, a subtle shame, a sense that something inside you is unacceptable, a shadow that stalks your brightest moments. What if I told you that this inner conflict isn't just your personal flaw? What if it's the signature of something universal, something every human must wrestle with, and that facing it could unlock a wellspring of power and wholeness you never imagined? Today, we're diving deep into a little book on the human shadow by Robert Bly, illuminated by Carl Jung's shadow work. Together, we'll unpack the 5 concrete stages for eating your shadow, that is, for recognizing, reclaiming, and integrating the very parts of yourself you've most wanted to hide. This isn't a journey for the faint of heart, but it's the journey to becoming whole. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to start facing your own shadow, why it matters more than ever in today's fractured world, and how eating your shadow may be the most empowering act you'll ever undertake. So, are you ready to meet the side of yourself you've been running from? Let's begin at the very root. What is the shadow? In the language of Carl Jung and Robert Bly, the shadow is everything about yourself that you, consciously or unconsciously, have decided is unacceptable qualities, desires, impulses, or memories you'd rather pretend don't exist. These might be negative traits like anger, envy, or selfishness. But they can also be positive qualities you were told were too much: wild creativity, powerful ambition, or a longing for love. Robert Bly uses a powerful metaphor. The shadow is like a long bag we drag behind us. As children, we are wide open, full of wildness, spontaneity, dreams. But bit by bit, parents, teachers, society, and even our peers send us signals about what is good and what must be hidden away. So, piece by piece, we stuff parts of ourselves into the bag. Don't cry, don't brag, don't be weird. The bag grows heavier and our sense of self shrinks. By adulthood, Bly says, we are often walking around with a huge bag dragging behind us, out of sight, but never out of mind. And here's the paradox. The more we try to escape our shadow, the more it secretly controls us. What we reject, we project onto partners, colleagues, enemies. What we suppress returns with a vengeance in moments of stress or pain. And most tragically, what we exile, we stop being able to use for good. Think for a moment. What have you put in your bag? Where do you notice old wounds or emotions popping up when you least want them to? Are there patterns in your life you can't seem to break, no matter how hard you try? So, what does this mean for you? It means that wholeness, the feeling of being truly yourself, at peace and in flow, cannot be found by adding more good qualities. It's found by courageously turning to face the parts you've lost, the parts you were taught to disown. The question is not, do you have a shadow? The question is, are you willing to see it and eat it? Now that you know what the shadow is, let's get practical. Robert Bly offers a concrete, step-by-step process, a roadmap with 5 distinct stages to eating your shadow and reclaiming your lost power. The journey begins, paradoxically, not with integration, but with exile. This is the unconscious process by which you push away the parts of yourself you cannot accept. As a child, maybe you were loud and passionate, but your family told you, be quiet. Good kids don't make a fuss. So you learned to mute your voice, to hide your passion. Maybe you were sensitive or artistic, but the world said, "Get real, toughen up." So you stuffed away your dreams. Exile happens in small, almost invisible moments. The bag is created over years, sometimes generations. By the time you reach adulthood, entire universes of emotion, talent, and wildness have been locked away. Why does this matter for you? Because most of us never chose what went into our shadow bag. It was chosen for us. And until you become conscious of what you've exiled, you will keep reenacting the same struggles forever. When you react strongly to someone else, is it possible they're showing you a quality you've exiled in yourself? What patterns in your relationships or work might be echoes of what's hiding in your bag? So the first stage is exile, but it's only the beginning. To reclaim your wholeness, you must move beyond blind rejection. Once you realize there's a bag dragging behind you, the next step is to hunt your shadow. This means actively seeking out the hidden, rejected parts, especially those that show up in your judgments and projections. Robert Bly suggests that wherever your mind goes again and again with blame or irritation, there's a piece of your shadow. If you find yourself despising arrogance in others, perhaps it's your own capacity for assertiveness, exiled long ago. If you resent others' success, maybe it's your own hunger to shine. Hunting the shadow is uncomfortable. It means catching yourself in the act when you criticize, gossip, or secretly envy someone. Instead of running from these moments, you pause, turn inward, and ask, what part of me am I seeing in them? It's not about shame. It's about curiosity. How can you use this insight? Start paying attention to your triggers. When something or someone really gets under your skin, ask yourself, what does this say about me? Is there a part of me that longs to express this, but feels I'm not allowed? For 1 week, keep a shadow journal. Each time you notice a strong negative reaction, irritation, jealousy, judgment, write it down. Then, with compassion, ask, is this my shadow waving at me? Over time, patterns will emerge. The shadow will start to reveal itself. Remember, you can only reclaim what you're willing to hunt. The shadow cannot be integrated if you refuse to see it. Now comes the heart of the journey, eating the shadow. What does this mean? To eat your shadow is to metabolize what you've found, to reclaim, digest, and integrate those lost parts. It's the opposite of exile. Instead of pushing away anger, you recognize its energy and ask how it can be used constructively. Instead of shaming your sensitivity, you allow it to become a source of empathy and insight. Bly says that eating the shadow means making room at your inner table for all of yourself. It's not about acting out every impulse, but about listening to what your shadow wants to say. When you feel envy, for example, you ask, what does this tell me about my own longings? How might I pursue what I want without resentment? This is not a one-time event. It's a practice, a daily act of courage. Sometimes eating the shadow means grieving what you lost. Other times it means laughing at your own humanity, forgiving yourself for being imperfect. So what does this mean for your life right now? It means that true growth is not about becoming better. It's about becoming more whole. Every time you eat a piece of your shadow, you reclaim energy, vitality, and freedom. Next time you feel an uncomfortable emotion, anger, jealousy, shame, instead of fighting it, get curious. Ask, what is this part of me trying to say? How can I honor it instead of exiling it? Integration is messy, but it is the birthplace of creativity and true strength. Here, Bly draws a vital distinction: wildness versus savagery. As you eat your shadow and reclaim your lost parts, you begin to rediscover your original wildness, the untamed, creative energy of your true self. But there's a risk. If you skip the hard work of integration, you may fall into savagery, acting out your shadow in destructive ways. Wildness is life-affirming. It's your ability to feel deeply, to love fiercely, to dream and create without self-censorship. Savagery, by contrast, is what happens when the shadow bursts out unconsciously. Rage, addiction, cruelty, or self-destruction. Why does this matter for you? Because modern life encourages us to be tame, controlled, predictable. We're told to suppress our intensity to fit in, to be nice. But when you deny your wildness, it doesn't disappear. It becomes distorted, sometimes explosively. Where have you confused wildness with danger? What might change if you welcomed your passion, your boldness, your authentic voice, instead of fearing it? Find safe, creative ways to express your wildness through art, movement, honest conversation, or time in nature. The goal is not to become savage, but to channel your raw energy into something beautiful and true. To reclaim your wildness is to reclaim your life force. But to do so wisely, you must continue the work of integration. The final stage is honoring the shadow not as a problem to be fixed, but as a lifelong companion and guide. Bly, echoing Jung, suggests that true wholeness is never about perfection. It is about embracing complexity, contradiction, and the unknown. To honor your shadow is to recognize that every quality you've exiled has a purpose, a lesson, a gift. Anger can become courage. Envy can reveal desire. Sadness can open the door to compassion. By welcoming your shadow, you move beyond the false self you built for others and finally come home to yourself. How can you use this wisdom? Make space in your daily life for reflection and honesty. Notice when you're tempted to present a polished, perfect mask. Ask yourself, what am I afraid others will see? What might I gain if I let my whole self be visible, even the messy, wild, or vulnerable parts? Once a week, set aside time to reflect on your shadow. Write about a recent situation where your shadow showed up. What did it teach you? How can you honor that part? Instead of exiling it again, let's bring these stages to life with a concrete story. Imagine this. You're at a family gathering. An uncle makes a sarcastic comment, and suddenly, you feel the urge to snap back. Instead, you swallow your anger and put on a polite smile. Later, you find yourself replaying the moment, feeling both resentful and ashamed. Why does this keep happening? In this moment, your anger is a piece of your shadow, the part you learned to hide because, as a child, you were punished for speaking up. But now, this buried anger festers, surfacing in other areas: passive aggressiveness at work, self-criticism, or even unexplained fatigue. What happens if, instead of repressing your anger, you pause and eat it? You might ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What do I need to say or do to honor this part of me without harming others? Over time, you might find the courage to speak more honestly, to set boundaries, to stand up for yourself. The same process applies to joy, grief, sexuality, or ambition, anything you were taught to stuff into your bag. What story from your own life comes to mind as you listen to this? Where might your shadow be quietly running the show? What would it look like to bring that part into the light slowly, compassionately, without judgment? Why does all this matter? Why should you care about your shadow in a world already overflowing with challenges? Because every conflict you face at home, at work, in society, mirrors the conflict inside. The more you exile your shadow, the more you'll find yourself fighting it outside, in your relationships, your culture, your politics. The world is full of shadow wars, projections, blame games, cycles of fear and scapegoating. But the real revolution begins within. When you eat your shadow, you break the cycle. You reclaim the energy you've lost to shame, guilt, and self-judgment. You become less reactive, more creative, more resilient. You become, in Jung's words, whole. Bly writes, "If any help was going to arrive to lift me out of my misery, it would come from the dark side of my personality." In other words, the parts of you you're most afraid to face are precisely where your healing, power, and creativity live. So ask yourself, are you willing to stop running from your darkness? Are you ready to listen for the gold hidden in your own depths? The choice is yours. Let's recap the journey we've taken. First, you learned what the shadow is. The long bag you drag behind you, filled with exiled parts of yourself. Second, you discovered the 5 concrete stages of shadow work. Exiling the shadow, hunting the shadow, eating the shadow, reclaiming wildness, not savagery, and honoring the shadow in daily life. Third, you saw how reclaiming your shadow is not just about healing wounds. It's about unleashing energy, creativity, and power that have been locked away. Here's the most important takeaway. You do not need to become perfect. You need to become whole. That means welcoming all of yourself, especially the parts you were told to hide. Your practical tool: start a shadow journal. Write honestly about your reactions, triggers, and moments of self-sabotage. Ask, what part of me am I seeing here? Each week, take one small step toward honoring, rather than exiling that part. You are not broken. You are not too much. Everything you are, including your shadow, is worthy of love, acceptance, and expression. By eating your shadow, you take back what is yours by right: your aliveness, your wildness, your power. So I invite you. What part of your shadow are you ready to eat today? What have you exiled that is now ready to come home? Comment below, what's one insight, feeling, or story that surfaced for you while watching? How will you begin your own journey of eating the shadow? Your experience may help someone else who's silently struggling. And if this video stirred something in you, subscribe to MindMirror and join a community committed to real, transformative self-understanding. In our next episode, we'll explore the archetypes hidden in everyday life and how they shape your destiny, whether you know it or not. The shadow is waiting. Will you answer the call? The ideas explored in this video are for philosophical and psychological exploration and are not intended as professional advice. Viewers are encouraged to engage in their own critical thinking and further research, and to consult with qualified professionals for personal concerns.